Cinema is back. We are here to review Venom 3: The Last Dance. Are you ready, Cam? Let's do it.
This is Popcorn for Breakfast, presented by St. Louis Area Smoothie Kings. Now, here are your hosts, Cam and Kurt.
Welcome back to Popcorn for Breakfast. My name is Kirk. I'm your co-host, and here's the greatest co-host of all time, Cam.
Thank you.
Cam,
Glad to be here.
How's it going?
It's going well.
We are freshly off of our early screening of Venom 3: The Last Dance. That's right. Somehow Hollywood decided to make 3 Venom movies. That's 3 movies about a villain who doesn't have a backstory. Cam, how you feeling? What's your mood right now?
Maybe ask me at the end of this. I'm still processing. Anytime we do the review right after the movie, it's like there's a lot, but I would say laying my cards on the table, was not a huge fan of the first 2 Venom movies. I felt like 1 I was okay with, 2 was a noticeable step down, in my opinion. And both were commercially successful to varying degrees. Venom 2, of course, released during the pandemic. I think 2021 was when that one came out, so hard to judge there. Venom 1, though, a smash hit. So in a way, it's not totally surprising that we're here sitting for Venom 3 as Sony looks to kind of cash in on another one of their tangential Marvel characters here. Perhaps the biggest one they have in their arsenal altogether outside of Spider-Man. So yeah, not surprised we're here, but also not overly happy we're here either, because like I said, the first 2 were not my favorite.
No, it's funny. There's a lot of weird things about this production, such as the production value, the budget, is kind of being held close to the chest. We're not seeing those real numbers out there. ChatGPT went ahead and searched and scanned and scraped a whole bunch of websites for me and thought it came in at like $120 million from all of its aggregated knowledge. That's what it's guessing through all of the back conversations, and
that feels like a safe guess. I think 120. It felt lower, and we'll get into that a little bit more. I don't know where the first 2 Venom movies came in, but I think 120, based on some other recent movies I've seen, seems like a pretty good guess. A lot of times we never know really for sure what the budget was, but this one I'll take 120 as a dart throw of 120 an answer.
Yeah. And projected pre-sales of Venom are estimated at 150 million. So I've also...
Is that opening weekend?
That is opening weekend projected this coming weekend. Venom 3: The Last Dance. That's what they're thinking it's coming in at, which pretty good, because I'll tell you what, I've not seen a lot of marketing for this, so they're not spilling a bunch of money that way. It's just all coming from just word of mouth knowledge and just popping up on your phone whenever you open up your theater app.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, they probably did the whole Fortnite Roblox circuit. I don't know. Well, I don't know. It's an R-rated movie. I didn't keep as close an eye on that, but I didn't see like a ton of primetime sports commercials. No, like Dr. Pepper Venom collabs. But no. maybe I'm not seeing it as much.
Maybe just Chevron. There's a product placement very clear that Chevron advertised just a little bit for this movie. So
150. If you're Sony, is a boon. I mean, you're feeling that majorly. If the production budget really is 120 or even north of that, I mean, 150 for opening weekend in this day and age is superb. And was that global or just domestic?
Just domestic.
Wow.
Pre-sales. Yeah, right?
Sheesh.
Pretty wild. And I think the reason is, I have to fact check you. I'm really sorry. I know fact checking is like a hurtful phrase right now. But I have to fact check you. It is a PG-13 film.
Oh, this one's PG-13. Wasn't the first one R, or were they all PG-13?
I think they were all PG-13.
Okay, my bad.
Which it makes more sense for it to get $150 million because you can get teenagers in those seats.
Yeah, that does make sense.
This is a hard PG-13. Let's just make that clear. If you're thinking of sending your kids to this is a hard PG-13.
I thought it was a soft R, so okay.
Yeah, this is like... you know how Jaws is rated PG? This is basically the same thing.
Right. Like it's a PG-13 movie that feels a little bit like an R-rated movie.
Yeah,
Sure.
definitely.
Okay.
Well, let's dive into things. I want to hear your thoughts. We had a lot of conversations on the hour-long ride car back because when we see our early screening movies, they are not close to us. That is the dedication we provide for you and you out there. So thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, whichever medium you're doing it, YouTube, podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. We're here for you. Check out our website, popcorn, the number 4 breakfast.com. Let's get into our superlatives. Cam's going to kick us off. We're going to do something called And the Oscar Goes To, which is our best actor category. Cam, who do you got?
Well, I'm gonna take the easy pick and go with Tom Hardy.
Mhm.
I'm gonna go with Tom Hardy, even though I don't feel like he does anything new in this movie. I don't feel like we break new ground. I do think that the Eddie Brock character that has been created in this movie, um, in this franchise rather, is a extremely shallow one. I mean, there's just really not a lot there, and I think that's always sort of been the fatal flaw of this franchise is that you've got this, the Jekyll and Hyde relationship. That's all. It's pretty common storytelling trope, but it's one that's effective if it's done correctly.
Mhm.
And I think where they missed the mark here is that Eddie Brock is supposed to come across as, to be the Dr. Jekyll character, you have to be kind of an everyman, or someone who is so far to the other side of Mr. Hyde or Venom in this instance that there's this funny, like, good cop bad cop routine. And Eddie Brock is kind of this nothing amorphous thing, like
Yes.
he really, there's not much of a character. So I think whenever I talk about Tom Hardy, I'm talking more about Venom, and kind of like because he also does the voice of Venom, and the character that I think he's created there. I felt like in Venom 1 was peak of this Eddie Venom routine. And in this one, there were some okay jokes coming from Venom's end, but Eddie didn't give a ton. But I would say Tom Hardy gets it for consistency and frankly for lack of better options
Mhm.
for me. So he gets my and the Oscar goes to, but I don't want you to mistake that as, oh, I'm going to see Venom because Cam said Tom Hardy does a great job and I'm expecting something different than what I've gotten. You're not going to get it. If you liked his interpretation of the character in the first two movies, I think you'll be happy here. It's mostly the same.
Yeah, it really is mostly the same. One of the things that I loved about Tom Hardy's physical appearance is that in Venom 1, he's like your slim, kind of boxer level weight. And now he weighs 100 pounds more in muscle. And he's just like, he just takes up the whole screen
Yeah.
and he doesn't have a lot of movement. So even though he is the best part of this movie, the amorphous uh, personality of his character, it really shows. It really is just us watching Tom Hardy move through Hollywood. I think it's not even a character.
Yeah, it's like, is there a reason that Eddie Brock now walks like a guy who does do jujitsu most of the time when he's not acting? Like, it's it's an interesting transformation and one that physically presents itself in a very awkward way on screen. So
Yeah.
yeah, that is different.
No explanation for the change in body shape, none whatsoever.
They
Not
could
a
have been like, "Hey Eddie, you've been lifting." I don't know anything.
exactly.
You
They
know.
could have showed them lifting in a gym. It would have been a fun scene. Like, okay, great. But no, nonsensical is the only way to go with this. So
Mhm,
great choice.
mhm.
Great choice. There is no other good choice. Let's be clear about this. This is a spoiler free review, but there is no other good choice in the rest of this cast. It's kind of crazy. But for purposes of choosing someone, I can't pick who Cam selected. So I'm going to go with Chiwetel Ejiofor.
Yeah, that's a
Chiwetel
safe pick.
Chiwetel Ejiofor, Academy Award nominee and just all-star baller. I always reference one of my favorite performances of his, which I don't think is a highly acclaimed movie. It's called Red Belt. It's a David Mamet play adaptation. I think he directed it. But in this, we see him at his best for what is happening to him with the script and with all of the production of this film. I think that when you are an actor of his caliber, you get these nuances. You basically demand the director and cinematographer to look at you to say, this is exactly the story that I'm going to tell, and the camera is going to capture that, and then you can piece the editing together.
Mm.
There are lots of moments like that where there are just these extra moments that he does. You don't see that with many of the other actors in this film. So that's why I have to lean on him for my best actor tonight.
Yeah, I think it's well said. I think there are moments where you see struggles from Chiwetel, but I you get the sense that it's coming from the other side of the camera.
Hmm.
Where they want him to do a certain thing or act perhaps against his instincts to fulfill some sort of creative vision. Kelly Marcel had, the director of the film, or whatever. Maybe it's the DP. Who knows? Either way, there are times where you're like, "Ooh, that was not good," but you don't get the sense that it's from him. And he does have his moments in this movie. He really does.
He does, indeed.
All
So
right.
now we need to chat about who is next in. So we have our best actor, and the Oscar goes to. We're going to talk about our best supporting actors or our scene stealer who stole the show for you, Cam, if that's possible.
Well, shockingly, I do have a scene stealer, and it's someone I didn't even know was on the call sheet for this movie, didn't even know was in the cast. And I'm even more bewildered that he was in the cast for a reason that should become immediately apparent to anybody who has followed this franchise and the whole Sony Spider-Verse carefully, and that's Rhys Ifans, who played the Lizard in the Andrew Garfield Amazing Spider-Man, the
That's right.
first one, and also reprised that role in a way in No Way Home. And so you're thinking, is the Lizard in this movie? No, he's not. In fact, not at all. And I don't consider that a spoiler. If you do, feel free to annihilate me in the comments. But I mean, he's never shown in the trailers. You shouldn't expect him to be in this movie. He's not technically tied to this exact universe, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But he's in this movie. He plays a totally different character. He plays a character that I don't even think you could imagine off the top of your head going into this movie. Is that off base? Like, I honestly don't think that if you sat down and thought of all the characters that might be in this movie, I don't think you would come up with this character.
Yeah, there's no trope that he is playing. Like, it's a completely off the wall character that I don't know who created.
I don't know either, and it ends up taking on a role of importance within the story of the film, larger than I could have ever imagined, even once the character was introduced. But going back to Rhys, I mean, you have to give him a ton of credit. Like, I think he was advocating for himself on set. I think he had his own creative vision for this character, and just the commitment was right there. I mean, you can just see it. He was funny, he was charming, he was doing all kinds of crazy, quirky things. And I think that he was given a lot of freedom, which was the right call from the director. So, two sides of that coin. You know, this was a good decision that I thought was made here. I think it's an absolutely batty character to throw into this mix of this story.
Batty, B-A-T-T-Y, not B-A-D-D-I-E. Let's be clear.
Good clarification. And so it's totally bizarre, and I'm shocked that I'm picking it, but he really sold out for it, and probably made me laugh more than any other character in the whole movie. So
yeah,
I have to give him credit.
Kudos to Rhys, man. I first saw him back in the year 2000.
Wow.
When he starred opposite Keanu Reeves in The Replacements.
Nice.
Good
pull.
That football movie. And then the next encounter was apparently the same release year. I just looked it up, was in Little Nicky with Adam Sandler. So a banner year for Rhys in 2000.
Yeah, Rhys was crushing it.
Can't say the same about 2024, but you know, we all have good years and bad years.
Hey, you know what? I don't know that I would call this a gold star on his resume, but it's not the worst thing.
It's not. So now I have to pick someone also in the cast that did somewhat well and who has not been announced so far. So let's
good luck.
Take a quick scan at the list. I do need a little assistance from IMDb. My apologies. I have to say that all things considered, I'm gonna give it to Juno Temple, even though we actively. Even though we actively stated that her performance just wasn't all there, and that is true. It was just a very, very, talk about shallow performance, a terribly shallowly written role, and she couldn't do anything with it. There was nothing there. I mean, Michelle Williams in Venom 1 and 2 also had nothing.
True, nothing to work with.
But there was just a little bit more in the writing to grip onto. Just a little, not a lot. Juno is just physically there, and that's it. That's really it.
So I mean, why again is she your scene stealer?
I think from her credit of previous work, I'm like, yeah, I enjoyed Juno Temple.
She stole the scene because you're like, oh, hey, that's Juno Temple.
That's right. I was like, I didn't see her in the trailer. That's great. Good for her. She's working still. That's really it. I really, it's strictly based on I prefer her other work versus this film.
Oh man, I think she turns it an all-time bad performance in this.
Yeah,
film. I mean, I think it's really, really bad, and I don't think it's all her fault at all.
No.
I think her dialogue is just yuck. It's so bad. It's so bad. And
Mhm.
her character is just I mean, what are they doing?
Think of how generic Michelle Williams' character is in Venom. Think of how generic Rachel McAdams' character is in Doctor Strange.
Mm.
Put them together, subtract 1,000 IQ points, and then this is the character that we get in Venom 3.
They picked one piece of character background for her and built her whole character around it
Mhm.
and referenced it as often as they possibly could
Yes.
in the 1 hour and 49-minute runtime of this film.
Mhm.
And that was it. That's all that was there. It was I felt bad.
That's it.
I feel bad for her.
See, it's not her fault. That's why she deserves.
There you go.
She's not going to win any other awards this year for Venom. Tonight on Popcorn for Breakfast,
You
she
saved
gets it.
You saved it. Respect.
Well, let's continue giving out incredible awards. I don't know if we can. Cam, can you tell me what the best part of this movie was, the showstopper that caught your attention?
Yeah, I mean, I think there was one action set piece in the center of this film, probably technically like 1/3 of the way through the movie, where Venom and Venom and Eddie Brock are on the run, and they're being chased through kind of like a woodsy area with a river. And what happens in that scene is there's some interesting choices with frame rate and editing and just the overall look, feel, and tenor of that whole section that is pretty unique to that section. Like there's kind of some inconsistencies throughout this film and how they visually convey things, particularly in the action sequences
Mhm.
even. But this scene had almost like a George Miller Mad Max frenetic kind of energy to it where
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
like some funkiness with the frame rates, there's some like real fast zooms in on characters. There's a little bit of silliness involved in there with Venom doing some Venom antics, and there was a glimpse there while I was watching it where I'm like, okay, this actually works. And if they could just not necessarily that I liked how that visual aesthetic fit within the movie, but I was like, if they could have just like kept this consistent, then you have a real visual style here and something that you can latch onto for better or worse to say like they committed to something that's kind of bold. And that was what I got from this section was like it's a little bit bold. It was fast. It was actually pretty well edited, whereas the rest of the movie I think really struggled in that department. Um, Visual effects still weren't quite there, but there was something there. There was a creative vision and something that felt notable there. And
Mhm.
I wish that it went in either direction and kind of breathed consistency through the rest of the film. It didn't, but for that set piece, I was like, okay, there's something there that I can latch onto.
Yeah. What I know the scene you're talking about. There's a lot of like special forces army people in that scene. And my favorite inconsistency of the entire movie is right before that scene happens. Like 4 or 5 of them have like this super advanced tech that changes their helmets into something else. And you never see anything
That's true.
as technically advanced as that. It makes no sense. And I'm like, huh, why did that happen?
Everything else is like standard military fare. Like not even
Yes.
like advanced symbiote killing guns,
No.
nothing else. There's like just the helmet and it's got some insane like symbiote specific tracking type,
Yes.
abilities in there, like almost like an infrared filter but for symbiote.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's all they've
And
got.
it doesn't come up anywhere else in the 2 hour runtime.
Other than that, it's like MP7s and rocket launchers
and Doctor Tube, like lab tubes to put the symbiotes in. Like, okay, that all tracks. What happened with this specific piece of CGI? I don't understand it.
yeah, good
I
question.
don't understand it. My showstopper is gonna have to go to. There's a moment, there's a scene. It's very similar to a scene in Venom 1 and Venom 2. It's a moment where Eddie Brock grapples with his morality. And it's because Tom Hardy is innately a dramatic actor. He does comedy well, but he really hits home his vulnerable side and really making you feel it when it counts, like cuts you deep into your core. So there's tears, there's conflict, and there is a question of will he survive this? How will he survive this? And what is he contemplating as he approaches death's door, possibly? Right. And that scene right there, among the other nonsense of the action film and the gimmicks of comic book movies, I'm like, there it is. That's why he's Venom. That's why he continues to work in this industry. He's fantastic. And shout out again to Tom Hardy being just the best. With that said, we got to move into things that we hated. We've alluded to them a little bit, but now we have to chat a little bit about how specific they were. And if we were to take Kelly out of the director's chair, and if we were to really sit there and really ponder over this movie, ponder over the edit of this movie, and really be at the helm of everything, what would it be? What would give us the director's shoes notes? Cam, what you got?
Yeah, I think it goes back to it always, for me, I will either kill a movie over its story or I will give it more points than it deserves because of its story. It's just my style. If you got a good story and you're failing on the other, cinematic tenets of filmmaking, things like that, I will find ways to brush over that. Maybe more than I should. But if you got a bad story, you're getting smoked because I don't like a bad story. And this is a bad story, and it's a bad story for a lot of reasons. But the thing that kept coming to me as I was watching this is this. I remember seeing this clip of Trey Parker of South Park fame talking about the secret sauce of writing screenplays for the South Park episodes. And he has a golden rule that is, if at any point between two scenes you can insert the words "and then," your story is terrible, right? It should be "but" or "and therefore." Those are the two things that you should use. So this happens and therefore this happened, or this happened, but then this happened. And, because there has to be this cause and effect relationship. And this story is chock full of and thens.
No and then. Have you ever seen Dude, Where's My Car?
Yes.
Oh yeah, the famous drive-through scene.
Yeah.
With and then no and then and then. The lady's screaming at them right now.
Exactly. Yep. That's me screaming at Kelly Marcel and the writing team behind this movie, because there are so many times in this movie where something happens and then something happens and you're like, why did that happen? There's no explanation for it. There's no cause and effect relationship. It's just, here we are and boom, there's a monster, or boom, the car hits something, or any number of things. I mean, truly, throughout this movie, I would challenge you as you see it to ask yourselves, why is this happening? Is there a reason for it grounded in this story, or is the reason just and then this happened? And that's where this script was dead on arrival, and it didn't even matter what happened with the screenwriting and the dialogue and the jokes and everything else after that, which none of that was great, but it was already over from inception. That story is fundamentally broken. And to think that this is the third film in a franchise and this is the finale, right? Like, Tom Hardy's been very clear. This is it. The movie's called The Last Dance. Tom Hardy's like, we're done. He has said that. That's not a spoiler. It's out there everywhere. He's done with Venom, right? And this is the story we get. It's embarrassing, and I can't even fathom how they got to this point. Truly.
Yeah. Beautiful notes. My director's shoes goes into how disconnected this movie is from itself. There are all of these scenes setting up exposition for things we don't need, things that we already know based on location, based on establishing shots, based on seeing any kind of movie ever before this. So there's all this long drawn out exposition while Chiwetel and Juno Temple are walking down a hallway where we just found out this information exactly 3 moments before this, like 3 beats, 30 seconds before this. We know exactly what they're doing, and they're saying it like it's happening for the first time and they need to explain it. This is an issue with the director. The director should be watching this and saying, oh, the audience has this information, whether verbally or non-verbally. They do not need this in the film, yet they keep it for who knows why. It is just bad storytelling, and it happens over and over and over again. There is this blatant, I am doing this right now because this is what's going to happen. I am physically doing this right now because this is what's going to happen, over and over again between every character. No one escapes it at all. It happens with every single big structural point of this movie until the action takes place and there's not really a lot of dialogue. Thank goodness. For whatever reason, this movie, I'll give a good point in my director's shoes. This movie does not drag. For the 1 hour 50 minutes, it's very clear that I was engaged the whole time. I wasn't yawning. I didn't pass out like I did with Megalopolis. I was watching that from start to finish. But seeing that happen over and over again was just aggravating. So frustrating.
Yeah, well said.
So with all of that, you know that we love this movie very clearly, right, Cam?
Yes.
What on earth could our scores be to entice you to see this opening weekend? Are you a big Venom fan? We saw people at our early screening in decked out Venom t-shirts. One guy had a Venom suit
It
jacket.
was actually sick.
It looked really cool.
Yeah, it looked really cool. I would like one.
That's right.
Honestly.
His swag was pretty cool. I don't know, like, is the Venom fan base big enough to draw people there? We don't know. And if you love it, if you loved 1 and 2, especially 2, which was the biggest misstep, will you go see this? Cam, what's your final thoughts and score on Venom 3?
Yeah, so let's talk about this franchise. I think from 1 to 2 to 3, I am someone who did not hate 1 as much as many critics did. I think really that was a byproduct of the MCU being at peak effectiveness in 2018, and then you get Venom, which is a noticeable step change from what was going on in the MCU at that time in terms of quality, stakes, pretty much anything you could say. But it really wasn't as bad as many people said it was.
Mm-hmm.
Now then there was the second one, Venom Let There Be Carnage. Not a fan. I thought that was a noticeable step down. I will go a step further and say that this is the worst of the three. I think this is the bottom of the franchise. I did not expect to think that going into this because I really didn't like Venom Let There Be Carnage. There were a lot of issues with that movie. But this movie, to be the third film in the trilogy, to be the one that Tom Hardy is going around saying this is the end. This is not it. I mean, this is like there's the stakes feel not very high for most of the film. The pacing, you said that you felt engaged the whole time. I'll agree with that, but the pacing is so uneven. We're going super 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 fast at times. Other times it's like, okay, what are we doing here? What, like, I'm still paying attention, but why are we still here whenever, like, first 10 minutes we were absolutely flying, and then you go back to that. There's just a ton of basic film making principles that are thrown to the wayside in this movie, from editing. I mean, I think the editing is really bad at times. I think the visual effects, I think, are frankly awful at times, like really bad, like a step backward for the franchise, which was surprising to me, and why I think the budget could be lower on this film than others. There's just a lot. The story, like I said, the acting, the overall creative vision for the movie was just not as inspired as some of the as the other two. I'll just say that. So I think this is a step backwards. I think this is a pretty it's a not very exciting directorial debut for Kelly Marcel. It's not something that, if I'm Tom Hardy, I want a writing credit for, because I think it's a really poorly written movie, and it's one that makes you go, why are we here? Why did we do this? Why is this a 3-film franchise, and what are we doing? And so for that, all of those reasons, it gets a 2.4 out of 10 for me.
What a nice score.
Thank you.
It's very kind.
Is it? 2.4 is kind?
It is, considering it is your least favorite of the 3. I think it's a pretty kind score, My final thoughts and score, I will say that I hated Let There Be Carnage so much that I think this is a step up.
Okay.
So it goes Venom 1 is the top tier, Venom 3 is in second place, and Venom 2 should be erased from history if we are allowed to do that, or be shown as what not to do in filmmaking. Absolute garbage that movie is. This one, not great, for all the reasons you've heard before this, but I do believe that there is something endearing about how actiony it is. Like, I can appreciate, even though the CGI was bad, the dialogue was bad, the pacing was bad, the fact that I was engaged. That is very hard to do when you have so many elements working against a cohesive film, a cohesive story, strong characters. The fact that I wasn't just ready to walk out, I wanted to see how it ended. I wanted to see if it would get better. Spoiler alert, it didn't for me, but I really was hoping that it would unravel into something incredible at the end of it somehow, some way. So all of that said, I'm going to go slightly higher than you. not terribly higher, but I'm going to give it a 2.9 out of 10 kernels today.
Nice.
That's Venom, The Last Dance. We'll never see another Venom movie again.
We can celebrate that.
Yeah,
I think that's good. I think we're it's good. It's kind of like when you see people running a marathon, and you see the people who are just really happy to be finishing. You see the people who look like they want to die.
Yes,
it's kind of like that. Like we're the people who are like, we finished it, but we were like, sheesh, it was touch and go there for a while.
Never again.
Yeah.
Never again. Will we see Venom in the MCU?
Oh gosh. Well, if we didn't see him in No Way Home, no.
But which post-credit scene did we see him cycling through multiverses? Was that Venom 2? Was that his post-credit scene, or was it someone else's MCU film post-credit scene?
No, it was
Morbius?
I think it was. I don't know.
We'll have to explore that answer for you. If you know the answer, let us know as soon as you can.
I think it was Venom 2.
You think it was Venom 2? I think so too.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Because that was the only good part of that movie. You're like, oh, maybe we'll get the good parts of Venom in the MCU.
Yeah.
So the jury's still out. We don't have any kind of full knowledge to know if we will see him in Avengers Doomsday or Avengers Secret Wars. If we do, we hope that they fully form Eddie Brock's character for the first time in cinematic history. You guys be the judge. Remember to check us out on YouTube if you're listening or watching on there. Thank you so much. If you're listening via podcast, we thank you as well. Anywhere you can listen to get your podcast, we're there. Check out our website, popcorn, 4. What? Breakfast.com.
Wow. You okay, buddy?
No.
Can we drive you to the hospital after this?
Please help. I'm having a stroke. There's a symbiote crawling into my brain right now and taking over. Popcorn, 4 breakfast.com. You can see us on everything, on all the TikToks, on all of the X's, aka Twitter, Facebook. We're there. We're everywhere.
You can read my blog on popcornforbreakfast.com, which should be dropping in the next couple of days.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this on Wednesday, it may already be out, about Conclave, my review of Conclave, which is getting a lot of awards buzz. So you have to hear my thoughts on whether or not I agree with that buzz.
Who's in that? We got Ray Fiennes,
AKA Stanley Tucci, #Tucci Gang.
Tucci Gang.
John Lithgow.
Yeah.
So Isabella Rossellini.
Incredible cast.
Yeah.
Incredible cast. So Cam got a special screening of that just a day before we saw Venom: The Last Dance. Quite the whirlwind from seeing a grounded reality movie versus this. So
the devil works hard, but podcasters work harder. That's what I always say.
Well, we're getting shirts of that soon. Thank you all so much for listening and watching. We'll talk to you soon.
Peace.